Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Atheist Experience. My name is Russell Glasser, and with me we have a first-time guest on, John Loftus.
It's good to be here. It's exciting, in fact. I appreciate being invited.
Great. It's good to have you here. Now, John has 2 master's degrees in the philosophy of theology and is the author of a number of books on atheism, including a couple that we're going to be talking about today. We got How to Defend the Christian Faith. It's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek title, and this one over here is called Unapologetic. Today is Sunday, April 2nd, 2017, and we are a live call-in, internet-based atheist TV show broadcasting from Austin, Texas, and dedicated to promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. You can catch us every Sunday live on YouTube or Ustream.tv. The official Atheist Experience is www.atheist-experience.com. You can provide feedback for the show by commenting on the official show blog at freethoughtblogs.com/AXP. You can email us at tv@atheist-community.org, or you can join the Atheist Experience official discussion group on Facebook. If you enjoy this show, you can check out our related podcast, The Nonprofits, airing on the first and third Wednesdays of every month. You can find links and more information from the Atheist Experience website, and the next Nonprofits will be recorded live this Wednesday, April 5th. And as always, the cast and crew of the Atheist Experience will be going to dinner after the show at Star of India. The address is 2900 West Anderson Lane, and we'll be arriving around 6:15 or so. I have one additional announcement to make for local people in Austin. The ACA lecture next month at the Austin History Center is going to be John Seaver from Population Connection, and he will be talking about soaring past 7 billion, population challenges for a crowded world. So that should be an interesting lecture. And on with the show. How are you today, John?
I'm doing great. It's a good sunny day here in Texas.
Yep.
And I'm loving it.
So you're on like a month-long visit here? Is that what I understand?
About 3 months. My wife is working as a contract therapist, and she's here for a few months. I'm retired. I can hang along and
cool.
Write and visit and have fun.
And you're going to be in Austin that whole time pretty much, or in and out of different cities, or what?
No, College Station is where she's stationed.
Okay.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Well, I hope you're enjoying our state more so far. I think some parts are more enjoyable than others.
Yes, I enjoy it, yeah.
Before the show we were talking, and you said that those 2 master's degrees you got are in topics that you now consider to be complete nonsense.
I did say that. Sometimes I say things off the air that shouldn't be repeated on the air. You do know this, right?
My bad. But no, I mean, believe me, people will appreciate that.
Yeah, well, it's like getting a degree in the characteristics and the existence of fairies, to my view now. And it did help me to produce, some arguments that I think are unique, and for that I'm very grateful. But I guess I would rather have gotten a business degree and made millions of bucks.
Well,
but,
sure.
Other than that.
I mean, I guess the difference is that you don't have something like 85% of Americans believing in fairies. And so it's at least a little bit relevant to have sort of an educational grounding in something that a lot of people think, right?
Right. As an ex-minister, college professor, I just want to share what I had learned in preparation for being an apologist. Mm-hmm. And, it would be a shame if I just walked away from all of my education and said, I'm done with it now, let's go out and play. Although I did do that for about 6 years.
Right.
I thought to myself, okay, I'm done. But then I started thinking about it in more deeper ways, and people would ask me to explain why I no longer believe. So I wrote a book, and I thought I would be done with it then. But
little did you know.
right?
Huh?
I mean, you can't stop. I mean, because they always have additional arguments that you didn't write about. You know, well, that requires an encyclopedia. So I kept writing and kept writing and kept writing, and
also, I mean, I've talked to a number of other ex-ministers before. I mean, and it seems like, I mean, being a minister is a very particular career path, which, you know, if nothing else, prepares you for speaking very confidently about a variety of topics. Like, you know, it's a public speaking type job, and I imagine that if that's what you wind up being good at, just because you drop the thing that you used to be talking about doesn't mean that you want to stop talking.
I like to talk. Yes, that's true.
I mean, I can relate.
Well, actually, as a preacher, I was pretty good at it. People would say, you know, they'd compliment me on, you know, the sermons and stuff like that. But when I became an atheist, I realized quickly that I don't like controversy. I know it sounds strange. I get nervous. I get nervous talking about things to people who don't agree with me. And
Sure.
So I
And
found
you
it
probably
strange.
didn't get a lot of people arguing with you from the pulpit.
Jesus loves you. Yeah, amen.
No, he doesn't.
Defend that claim. No, that never happened, you see. So I realized quite quickly that I was kind of nervous as a speaker, and it's kind of taken me a little bit to get out of that, I think so.
Okay, but you've obviously enjoyed writing these books a lot.
No, it was I would rather have my teeth pulled one at a time without any drugs. So no, it's really hard writing a book, and I look back at them and I say, you know, I didn't do this one, you know, well enough, and I want to revisit it and want to re-edit it, and all the time.
So that's how you wind up writing more books.
Yeah, you got to explain this. Okay, so I do some more, and what helps me is I blog at debunkingchristianity.com. I'm you know, the originator of that blog, and so I've had over the years people who would come on and debate me, and or others there, and I would come up with new ways of saying things that at least I hadn't said before, that would better explain my thoughts in my books as I go along, and sometimes I would even base a book on a lot of the stuff that I wrote on the blog, like The Outsider Test for Faith, and like this one, and then like that one. You won't be able to find these books online because these books are taken from my blog posts, but they are quite a bit extended from the blog posts themselves.
Right. Yeah, I've actually cited you as coining the outsider test for faith a few times in the past.
I got one person.
Yeah, I do. I mean, you know, I do a few talks for secular student groups and conferences sometimes, and like one of my favorite techniques, even though I hadn't necessarily called it that before, was basically flipping it around and, you know, flipping people's arguments around and saying, well, would you take it seriously if a Muslim was saying that to you?
Right.
Which is basically the outsider test in a nutshell, right?
It is, yeah.
So this title, How to Defend the Christian Faith, I'm presuming is kind of tongue-in-cheek. I've been looking through the chapter headings, and I've flipped through this book a bit. And I noticed that, like, in part 1, where it says preparing for the task, you've got chapter headings called, like, realize the monumental challenges, get a good education in a good field of study, and, you know, become an honest, lifelong seeker of the truth, which is all pretty good advice for anyone, right? But then when you actually get down to actually defending the Christian faith, your headings have a bit more of a bite to them, and they become things like, you have to gerrymander for God, and when all else fails, lie. What are you going for there?
Let me see what I did say. I'll start reading on page 1, and we'll get to it before too long. No,
I don't think we have time for that.
Part 1, I actually offer sincere advice to wannabe apologists. I have a unique pedigree. I have studied with some of the top defenders of 4 out of 5 different apologetical methods, and the 5th one, where I didn't actually study under a leading proponent, I had a class in.
Any names we might have heard of?
William Lane Craig.
Yeah.
John Feinberg, or Paul Feinberg, Kenneth Conser, who was the who is known as the Dean of Evangelicalism. He edited Christianity Today.
So you're saying you studied directly with William Lane Craig?
I did,
Like he knows you.
Oh, yeah.
And what does he think of you?
We're friends. I mean,
Okay.
I mean, in a way, except that, I don't know, I kind of goaded him a little bit that maybe he doesn't like me anymore. I don't know. But
if you want to say for our very small audience, what do you think of William Lane Craig? I won't stop you, but...
Well, in the chapter...
if you want to be diplomatic, I'll...
In the chapter 11 here, when it says, when all else fails, lie,
Uh-huh.
I have a little section on him. You know?
Okay. I got
so,
that.
so he's not going to like that, I suppose, if he's paying attention, and he doesn't think he has to pay attention, so he's not, I guess, so.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not like we have a mind share of all those Americans who, who just buy into a faith, and so... you can make a lot of money by when all else fails, lie.
Now, one thing he's in a particular position as an apologist is that he's a really good debater. He can defend the indefensible like no one else. You did hear what I said. He can defend what's indefensible like no one else. And so when he's debating, you ought to view him as a lawyer. A lawyer will present the case on behalf of his client and put him in the best light as possible. It's stretching the truth if possible. I'm not accusing lawyers of that, but they want to do the best they can at making their client look good, and that's what William Lane Craig thinks that he's supposed to do with God, and he will stretch the truth and even misquote things and pull things out of context to make whatever his case he can make.
Yeah. One of the things that I've actually noticed a lot, if I had to nail down a general technique for what apologists do, they really quickly, they talk about things that should, in a way, be in the realm of empirical reality that you can, study and test. But what they seem to try to do a lot is, move the conversation away from empirical topics and move it to abstract concepts as quickly as they can. So they get, you ask, what's the evidence for God? And they'll say, oh, well, mathematically, because there is no last number or whatever. They will talk in these huge generalities and then try to apply it to specific features of the real world where, if their argument were correct, it would apply to any possible universe.
Oh, yeah, right, exactly. They lack an imagination as to what could have been.
Right.
And what they do is they take the universe as it is and they assume God is good and God made the universe good. And so therefore they do all they can to make sure that the universe is painted in good pictures and that we are the bad people and God's never to be blamed. And, it's nauseating. It's just simply nauseating.
Sure, yeah.
They're not honest people, at least on a subconscious level. Their brains will not allow them to entertain the truth because there's so much writing on the delusions that they've been fed that they can't allow themselves to entertain anything but the delusion itself. They're brainwashed. They're indoctrinated. They can't. It's really hard to try to break through to them. It just really is hard. So I'd like to deal in terms of concrete examples. Like Christians will take you down the rabbit trail of, well, define an extraordinary claim. What is an extraordinary claim? And they'll bring up all kinds of odd scenarios. Or they'll say, define a miracle. Let's get into definitional apologetics and see if we can't just define this away. So you engage them. And again,
that takes you to abstract concepts. It doesn't necessarily have to be mathematical proofs. It can be, let's spend 20 minutes talking about what this word means.
So what I do is I focus on concrete examples. Okay, so maybe we're having trouble defining a miracle here. So let's talk in terms instead of a virgin who has a baby, or a levitating, 3 persons off of the Mount Transfiguration, so-called. Or let's talk in terms of concrete examples, and all of a sudden they back away. I mean, all of a sudden we can't we can't deal with this definition anymore because you don't have a definition. Well,
Right.
I don't need one. That is a miracle, right? Yes or no?
Yeah.
And go on from there.
That's where it comes in handy to be familiar with a variety of different kinds of religions, because like if you know Mormonism and you were to say something like, well, the Mormons say that Joseph Smith read all these, got personally visited by an angel who handed him some golden plates, which seem to say something that's unbiblical. What do you think about that? And it's really easy to get them to jump to, well, that's nonsense. And it's like, why? Here we go, follow me down this road, right?
Right. And it's interesting to see that the Mormons will, they have pretty good arguments against, say, evangelicals. Mm-hmm. Evangelicals have pretty good arguments against Mormons.
Exactly.
And they both have pretty good arguments against Catholics, and Catholics have pretty good arguments, against them, and on it goes until you talk about different religions.
If you want to know what's wrong with Scientology, listen to a fundamentalist Christian explain it.
Yeah. And so what I do is I simply listen to them.
Mm-hmm.
I simply read what they say, the liberals, the conservatives, the different religions, and I report back, to my readers what they've said. And they do all the work for me because none of them have any evidence for them. And so what they're doing is they're dealing in abstract concepts, like you said, without any reality behind them. And that can be seen most clearly when you see religionists debate each other. Mm-hmm. I step back. These are what you guys are saying. And you're saying, you're making the case for me.
And so sometimes the best thing to do can be to put yourself in the role of an opposing, religious mindset and just play devil's advocate. Like, for instance, if you've got a nice Christian who wants to talk about how, those Westboro Baptist Church people who just think, God hates fags, we're not like them. You say something like, well, why not? Don't they have a point? And exactly. Trying to argue against one religious position kind of invalidates a lot of the arguments that they'd be bringing up for theirs.
Oh yeah, I mean that's my point. My point is religionists debunk themselves, and they're even believers. They'll say, "Oh, but you're an atheist. You don't believe because you hate God." No, these are the arguments coming from other people who believe in God just as strongly as you do, but they happen to have a different take on God. You can't say that of me because I'm only telling you what they have said, and they are already believers. Well, they're not the right kind of believers. Well, show me why they're not kind of believers. I'll even challenge them to go to their websites, go to their forums, like. Christians ought to go to Jehovah's Witnesses forums and say, okay, spend 4 weeks there and see how many you can convert. Go to the Catholic forum and see how many you can convert. Why? And the question is, why can't you convert them? And you'll find out, what I'm up against. You'll find out what it's like to stand back and say, you know what, as an outsider, I don't find your reasons, sufficient. There's no evidence.
So, some of them will sometimes retreat to saying, well, I'm not really trying to convince everybody. It's just God really likes to see his followers put in a good effort being persecuted by unbelievers. And so, I may never convince you, but it makes me feel good. Or it makes God feel good, actually.
I like roller coasters. They make me feel good. I'll just go roller coaster riding. Then let's forget argumentation in of itself,
Right.
But if there's a God who wants disagreement, then we have to look at the kind of disagreement that we've seen among religions, and the death that is called, and the mayhem that it is causing today, and the stuff that has gone on in the past. And you have to say, is that a God that you want to believe in that's worthy of worship, that would inspire two different religions, or even within any given one of them that would, condone rape or killing of homosexuals? Or is that the kind of God you actually want to embrace? And then you kind of press them on that kind of issue as well. So
right, and I mean, according to various sites and organizations that pay attention to these numbers, it's not just two competing religions; it's tens of thousands of sects of Christianity. Which, I mean, basically what happens every time is it's like, look, there's all these sects of Christianity and they can't seem to agree on anything. So let's make a version that agrees on everything. And then it's like, oh, now we have 30,001 sects of Christianity.
Yeah.
Do you have would you say a favorite argument or Christian apologetic that you just keep coming back to over and over again?
No.
They're just not that good, huh?
No, I was asked on a Christian radio program a couple of years back, what's the best argument that you've run across from the Christian circles? And they were talking from the evangelical circles. None. No, don't you have any? Right. Don't you have any? No, they're all bad. I mean, they just like I said here, they specialize in special pleading, they punt to possibilities, they gerrymander for God, they master the art of mischaracterization. I cannot believe
a lot of alliteration there.
I can't believe how often I engage Christians and they mischaracterize. They don't have the eyes and the ears to see and to hear what I'm saying. Now, I used to be on that side, so I'm doing my damnedest, to help them understand that I understand what you said, and I could say it just as well as you have said it, and even better than you can say it. And so I understand what you say. But they can't do that likewise. They can't understand. I try, but they don't have the eyes or the ears to hear. Their brain is lying to them. Their brain is specializing in lying to them, hiding the truth.
Well, turning the topic around from how Christians can convince atheists, is there any particular technique or approach that you've found works really well as an atheist? And when I say works really well, I obviously don't mean converting everybody you talk to, but there must be that one thing that's 1% more effective than the other stuff, or not one thing.
For believers to talk to atheists and convince them?
For atheists to talk to Christians, because most atheists I know were once Christians. If you're talking to somebody who's religious and you want something that works better than the typical technique, how do you approach an argument?
Well,
after this, we'll go to callers.
Okay, I like the outsider test of faith, and that's treat your own religion as if you're an outsider, like you've never heard of it before.
Right.
And so then let's go in to see how exactly you look at the Mormon or the Muslim faith. How do you do that? Well, we assume that the Quran is not divine, but written by Muhammad as a man. A man wrote it. And then we look at for evidence to see if there's a divine mind behind it. Well, do that same thing with the Bible. Don't automatically assume that the Bible is written by God. Approach it as if a bunch of different people wrote it, and see if there's any divine mind behind it. That kind of thing. Sometimes
so don't start with the assumption that it's divine.
No.
See if you can work your way to the conclusion that it's divine.
Otherwise, you're special pleading, and that's why I have a whole chapter in this book called "You Must Specialize in Special Pleading." Let me just read, if I could, the first paragraph of that chapter, because I think I said it better than I'm going to say it if I don't.
Sure.
All apologetics is special pleading. If you want to be a Christian apologist, you must perfect this art. It's what you'd be taught in any college or seminary apologetics program. However, if you want to be a good Christian apologist, you must avoid doing so entirely. But if you avoided doing so entirely, you wouldn't be an apologist at all. The risk here should be clear. If you didn't special plead your case, you wouldn't be an apologist at all. That's the kind of thing you'll see in this book. It's kind of a backhanded way of talking to Christians, but I do offer some sincere advice in the first chapter, about being honest, being a lifelong seeker of truth.